Thanks again, everyone, for all the support so far through the 2025 NRL Fantasy Preseason. We are here for the hooker cash cows under 400k. So if you want to see anyone above that number, I just put out the mid-range video yesterday, 400 to 600, and the guns video, 600 plus, the day before. So go and check those out. Very, very clearly stated there in the podcast and also the YouTube. Remember, guys, 3 to 4 hours every single day earlier, I'll be posting the podcast. I'm looking to grow that a little bit this year. So if you want to jump in, listen to that. The audio is great. I'd really appreciate that too as a starter. And if it's you getting on the way to work with the podcast, and that's probably perfect for you there. We have 8 guys to go through, and there's definitely some interest here from a few guys for sure. We had a couple in the mid-range that were fun, and we had a couple of guns that were fun as well. So it does seem like it's a position you could probably get closer to 3 if you wanted to. As I said, it could be 2, could just be the one cheapie or gun that you could go with. Plenty of different strategies, and we will go through that in another time and also in the private group, but we'll get to that at the end. Brendan Hands will kick things off, and boy, wasn't this Eels situation frustrating last year. 29.1 was the average, 389k across the season, which included a host of starts and a Jacob host of benches. For him, the price reaction, I thought it was pretty reasonable, and we'll get to that in a sec as to why. For Hands is a 37-point scorer as a starting hooker across 2023 and also 2024, and that provides him with 8 points of value on that starting average, which is pretty solid, obviously. But is it worth the chance of him losing his spot? Probably not. The end. I think we can basically leave it at that. You know, for 8 points of upside, for a high chance of splitting time or losing his spot to Lussick or whatever they're going to decide to do, I don't think it's worth it unless he was the sole hooker, and that might be it. But again, they change that very, very regularly. So I've got him between 32 and 37. If he is starting, I don't think you'd regret not owning him. Bit of upside risk, percentage chance at 30%, and a bit of downside risk at 30 as well. I think it could go either way. But yeah, do you want that type of player in your side? Consistency 7, confidence is a 6, and he's done this a couple of times now. All right, this one was pretty funny. Phoenix Crossland, 382k, 28.6 average. And before I looked into the stats, I popped him into the 151 players video, saying that, you know, I thought he was potentially an option to investigate, which he was, but don't look any further than me talking to you right now. I hadn't looked into it properly yet. I thought 28 average, surely, for a guy that has done fairly well in hooking role, but last year was diabolical. He had 31 average in 60 minutes as hooker last year, especially when you had Jaden Brayley in there and playing 62 minutes himself. So Crossland spent some time as a bench hooker that actually would start. They seemed to switch it pretty regularly. He would spend a lot of time through the middle, and still to have a PPM of just over 0.5 is pretty gross. And he had a 29 average at 7, so absolutely gross. Move on, simple as that. And do make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell, guys. We're ramped up. We're going nuts in this preseason. It's going to be so much fun. Jake Simpkin, 371k for him. Very, very interesting. This situation at a 27.8 average, the price, I looked at it, I went, ooh, that's good. Now that no Croker in that first 3 games, it looks like we will be missing Lachlan Croker. He's touted for a round 4 return. So is 3 rounds enough? Are we actually going to get 3 rounds? Is it going to be longer? We saw Croker out for a longer period of time last year. He's got a knee brace on right now. But the role reaction is a smiley face. It is, if he's starting, it is good news there. And a very similar situation, upside and downside risk for Brendan Hands. And you'll see why in a sec. But I do have him at a 34 to 39 3-round expectation, which again, it could just be 3 rounds. Is that enough for you to make some cash and get some good enough scoring on the board? Because when he does start at 9, he averaged 37 in 57 minutes. And he had his best score at the Tigers before the move. And then he was pretty meat and potatoes tacklebot at Manly. He actually had some attacking stats in that Tigers one. And then he just went to the tackles, basically. Ran a tiny bit, the odd tackle break. But not too much in there. And that's where the PPM is a little bit lower. But still, if he was to average, you get the start, that's 10 points, 9 to 10 points of value if he plays 57 minutes, and if he plays more than that, then it could be a little bit better, obviously. But will we get enough time with him in our teams to justify, with Croker likely back in round 4? His average does go to 40 if we can see over 60 minutes for him, and 44 if we can get 71 from him. So I do personally expect a tick over 60 minutes in this side as a starter if he manages to get this spot. And that would see him about a 40 average. Obviously, there's a bit of a risk that he goes that sort of 57 minutes or so, and that's why I think I've got that average between 34 and 39, just as more of a safety measure. But definitely, if you want to shoot for the stars, then you have the opportunity to go 40 plus, which we've seen him do at times, as seen with those averages in the minutes. But 44 at best for 3 rounds, without sort of 60 upside, like you can see from guys like Fuller and these types of players that we had coming in for a shorter period of time. It's probably not one you're going to regret unless we see him in that starting spot for longer, and then he has a bit more time to get sort of 50, 100k extra in him and average somewhere near the 40 mark, which would be really nice at a 27.8. So it's a maybe as the could you regret not owning him at this point of the season. But if something changes and we find out more, we know he is good enough in this side, and hopefully can build a little bit more attack. But I suppose comparing the Tigers of yesteryear to Manly with the weapons that both teams had in comparison, there's a reason why he went to that tackle bot role for that good amount of time. So that Simpkin definitely looks, it feels like a stepping stone, slightly risky play if you want to go for it. If there's no bench hooker, then absolutely a good shout for 3 rounds. And if there is, it'll be an okay play that won't hurt non-owners, in my opinion. So Jake Simpkin, there you go. Joey Lussick, I had to put him in there just for old time's sake, right? Pretty gross all around. He started incredibly well and then completely fell off a cliff. He needed 68 minutes a game last year to hit 35 as an average, which if he was to start again and play the big minutes, that's where you're looking at 8 points of value, which is gross. He's an unlikely starter. I think Cairns has got the jump on him. They do have a new coach, but I don't think it helps him and how he's going to play. I couldn't go back again personally after making that big mistake last year. All right, Blake Mozer and Pete Mamouzelos. This is where it becomes a lot more interesting in this video. And sorry I had to get through a couple of those shockers, but I did find that Phoenix one funny that I chucked him in there. And then as soon as I finished that video, I started analysing all these guys and went, oh yeah, he sucks. Blake Mozer, 337, 25.3 average last year. He has to start to be relevant. It's as simple as that. At that price point, you can't expect too much more off the bench in terms of an average increase. He's priced at his bench output of that 34.6. So starter minutes, you would need about that 50 mark, which you should expect. There has been times though, there were times last year, I should say, where Walters and Mozer were playing together. And when Mozer got up to about that 40 minutes, you did see Walters sort of play 45 to 50. Other games, they did split it, 40-40. So it could be a potential chance again. And they do have Mozer, they do have Pakes, and they also have Walters. So it is 3 hookers to fit into 2 spots. And one of them is going to be the beneficial spot, and one of them won't be. Well, 2 of them won't be. One won't be in the team. But if you're not in the team, then it's not going to be a problem for us to not select him in that first game. But if you assume no natural improvement, which he is a guy that's highly touted and scores fairly well in Queensland Cup, which we'll go through in a sec. If you assume no natural improvement in the off-season, we would need 50 minutes for this pick to work as a starter at that PPM, right? Which, 25.3 and 34.6 minutes is fine. That's obviously really good if he had a lot of minutes, but we're not expecting anywhere near the 80 mark. So he's got 36.5 average. Sorry, he would expect a 36.5 average at 50 minutes, which again is 11 and a bit points of value, which is solid. So plenty of upside on this as well if you were to see some natural improvement and the team is to go a bit better. And obviously when you finally get the starting role, you can have a little bit more safety in trying different things. When you're coming off the bench, it's like, okay, I'm coming on. Yes, I want to make my impact, but I'm also need to get the big dogs the ball. And if he was to play some more minutes, there's more opportunities for him to do some nice work in attack. There's plenty of raps on the kid. I do like him long term, and was someone, after seeing him had that lovely try assist in the last or second last game in 2024, I was like, cool, this is a guy we want in our sides very, very quickly. So keep that in mind. The guys that have wraps on them usually come out, and when they get that opportunity, they do really well. We saw Willison last year as just a quick example from the Broncos that has big wraps on him, and when he did get his opportunity, he took it and he was worth it. So I think Mozer can do the same. The two guys in front of him at the moment, or next to him in Walters and Pakes, both aren't world beaters. So Mozer, with the wraps on him, has an opportunity to move into that starting spot, and apparently it's up in the air at the moment. Definitely by the time you're seeing this video, that's where the situation is a month out from round one. He did average 47.2 in mid-60s minutes in Queensland Cup, which is great signs. Means that if he can get anywhere near that, he should be a 40 to 44 guy, I'd say, in first grade. But there is a risk he could start, then play bench following an off game. They could change it very regularly. So there's plenty to worry about for sure. I just don't know if you're going to regret not owning him at the beginning because of the risks available. He could come out and dominate, sure, but I think if that's the case and it looks like he's just going to keep that starting spot and do pretty well, you just buy him in the second, third, fourth week, whatever it is, and it'd be fine. It's a price point that you can easily get to. So my 5-round expectation for him is if he's starting is 35 to 40, and then he probably increases from there if it improves. And with that PPM, could get 40 in 50 minutes, could get 35 in that time, or could be 45 minutes, could be 40. We just don't know at this point. So I just think there's a little 3-game downside risk and a little bit of upside for sure. Probably a little bit more upside than downside if he was to be starting. So Blake Mozer, a very interesting pick to kick things off. All right, Pete Mamouzelos, 3 players to go. A couple of youngsters following this. But Pete's been in the league now for 4 years and he's only 23, 24, which is pretty solid. Price reaction is cheap. With Damien Cook gone, the roll reaction, smiley face, finally. It's been a long time and he should be starting for sure. There's a couple of things to think of in terms of guys that could steal some minutes off him, and one of them is Humphreys. You would expect Lewis Dodd to start at 7 and Humphreys to be the 14, and we know that he'll take some minutes at 9 and then will be that utility type player. For Mamouzelos, he had 3 hooker starts. He has a 50 average in 70 minutes, which is cracking news, that's for sure, for a younger player. Let's go through his splits now. He has a 30 average in 45 minutes off the bench, which is very inconsistent in terms of his scoring. He seems to score better when he starts, surprisingly enough. 34 average in 51 minutes, which is over 40-minute games off the bench. And if you just went with that 34 average there, at 51 minutes, which if he starts, you'd expect at least 51, in my opinion, there's 10 points of value straight there. So that's the floor, I should say. And then 38 average in 56 minutes, start and bench combined. So yeah, there's probably not enough hooker starts to go, yeah, that's a locked in play, but we've also heard a lot of good things about him for a while now. So that's where you could look at that and go, oh, well, if you manage to get 60 odd minutes, then somewhere in the 40s looks pretty fair. For sure, just looking at that. And that 38 average, if you got 60 minutes, should be a 40, which again is 16 points of value and should be very, very easy to select him in your sides. And when I do put out my setup, my locks, the guys that I'm not going to change unless we hear anything weird and wonderful, Pete Mamouzelos will be in that side right now. It's just very hard not to see it working out well enough for him to get 10 points of value. With potential to go even better. So as I said, you would have to expect 50 to 60 minutes if he's starting, and without a tremendous amount of replacement worries, he is a safe set and forget pick to begin 2025. Pete Mamouzelos, fun one. We've been waiting for a while. Moriarty, 230k with the Roosters. So if you're looking at his stats, just as a quick overview for him, it's got a mix between start and bench hooker in the Roosters New South Wales Cup team. He did average 38 in about 50 odd minutes. Again, I didn't go through and do it exact, but close enough, which is all we need right now until we actually see him starting. He needs an injury. Hopefully it's not to Watson, but good to know his quality if anything happens / how it would affect Watson if he, with Watson starting. Like if Moriarty was a young gun dominator that's coming through, it does look like he's playing well, but he's also only had a few starts. It's a mixture between bench and starts for him. starting minutes he got in the 60s, and bench minutes were everywhere from 30 to 50 odd. So he's obviously not a guy that's dominating New South Wales Cup right now, and if he was, then I'd go, oh, maybe we have to rethink Watson a little bit. But now I just think it's good to see that. Shouldn't affect Watson too much. He'll probably come in if he does and play a few minutes. If they want to use him as that sort of hooker utility, they might go a different way as well. We don't know at this point, but just good to know where he is at. And then Owen Pattie, 230k he would come into the game at, but he's not currently in there as yet. He only had 3 starts in New South Wales Cup, and guys, make sure you do stick around for Scoops and Heath's thoughts on the cheapie section as well. Only the 3 starts in New South Wales Cup last year for Owen. He's likely a little green. No pun intended. Ends up being intended. Plus the bench spot, which is gross usually for the Raiders. He has lots of talent, and the raps on him as a 21-year-old. He's 2004 baby, which is just wild. Similar to guys like David Wiley and stuff like that. I think actually Davy's 23. Scratch that. 2003 baby. But a 32 average in 30 odd minutes. So pretty nice on that. But that is also very low minutes for someone that we might need to try and push into first grade. And is he going to be able to get good minutes in first grade when you're only playing 30 odd in Cup? I don't think so. So that's where it's just a good one to have a little bit of a look at him. But he does kick a bit from dummy half, runs the footy a bit, tackles well in some games. He had a 53 tackle game for 1 miss, but then he had 11 tackles, 3 miss in one game. So all over the shop on that, but has upside for sure. If his PPM is somewhere near the 1 mark, that's great news. So keep an eye on Owen Pattie. There's plenty of talk out of Raiders camp right now about him doing really well with the squad, and he will be, I think longer term, he will be their number 9. So they've just got to get through another year probably, and I think he'll debut at some point, and probably have the random good games. But do they need 1 or 2 injuries for him to play big minutes? I think probably 2, and we can look at it from there. That's the cash cows, guys. As I said, my cash cow and overall hooking rankings will be in the private group, so do check that out, given all the information here. And then I'll just give my rankings, which is going to be a big part of the year. Trades each week, discussion, one-on-one chats, me going through each section will be all in there, just as some extra stuff to go off. I'll give you all the information on here, and a big thank you to you guys for supporting me by watching this stuff. And if you want to support more, private group's the way to do it. All the information is in the description, and obviously checking out the podcast as well. That's a big help. I do have an Instagram going as well, which I'm posting there and on TikTok. Instagram's not big at the moment. TikTok's near 3,000 followers, which is pretty cool. But I'm posting on Instagram just to post on TikTok at the moment. But if you want to check that out, Fantasy Jamie on that one as well. And you'll see my hooker team structure and who I'm going to be rolling with in that private group as well. But his thoughts on the cheapies. He does have Mamouzelos in there, and then we also have the thoughts from the Scoopman down there below as well. So his thoughts, Mamouzelos picks himself there in this one. 38.4 average in 40 plus minute games, priced at 23 with the plus 15.4 projection on that one. Pretty easy for that one there. Scoop takes, so I didn't separate that. But he has Mamouzelos at number 1, does Heath. With Scoop, he's got him at a 9.5. Get him in, he reckons. He got him with 11 points of value, estimating a 35. So he's got him at 38.4. Pretty solid overall, to be fair. Scoop says, it's that easy, right? Isn't it? Almost basement starting hooker is hard to go wrong. Probably anything up from 55 minutes would be a slam dunk, and even 50 would still be fine. The cons would be how fast will Humphries rise. If he comes in to start earlier than, say, 6 weeks, it might hurt Pete's cash making, but there's not a lot of downside. Blake Mozer, he wanted to mention as well. Overall, 7.5 out of 10. Good if the role is there. Average 25.3 last year. You're expecting him at 33 if he's starting, so a little bit low on that front. The pros for him, he is touted to be a brilliant player and has been carefully developed for a while. With no Kevy coaching, every chance he does start. And at his price, he probably doesn't need more than 50 minutes to be a good buy. Anything up from that is a bonus. Cons, the Hunt signing may eventually kick him out of the team, or do they rotate him there during the game and Walters goes into the halves too? It's hard to say. I don't think he gets the minutes of Mamouzelos, and he's slightly more expensive. So he's got him obviously a fair bit below there. And that's something I didn't mention, but I just thought that was far enough away to not be a thing. It's half the season almost that Mam's going to be out for, and Hunt should be playing at 6. So I just felt like didn't have to mention it, but it is a good thing to know as well for those that didn't see that part, that Hunt is likely to move into that 9 role a little bit later down the track. So there you go, guys. That's the hooker cash cows. We do get into the mids next in the guns, which is going to be good fun. Talking Isaiah Yeo, talking Payne Haas, Hopgood, all the good ones. Can't wait for that. That'll be the next section. We'll just keep going through that. Mid guns, mid-range, mid cash cow. And then we'll put some bits and pieces in between for Supercoach. Likely during the week, guys, you'll see Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You should see double video days. And then Friday, Saturday will just be the one in the morning, given it's a lot busier for people. So do expect that, mixing in some different stuff. You would have just seen the video that came out around looping, and especially for beginners, helping out with them to start the video. And then the second half of the video is on looping, advanced stuff and also normal stuff. So if you want a refresher on that, if you forgot from last year, or if you're still learning looping, please jump in and at least go to halfway and check out when I'm going through looping stuff there. Might actually try and go and separate it for people once it's uploaded, which will be cool, with the timestamps, which has been a while. So check all those out, guys. Appreciate you guys being here, listening on podcast and for on the YouTube. You're all the best, and we'll catch you in the next video.